everyone, and thank you for joining our webinar today, where we're going to talk about how Cornell College accelerated their data maturity. My name is Steve Weichen. I'm the Chief Customer Officer for Data Intelligent, and with me is Angie Bauman Power, Director of Institutional Effectiveness at Cornell College. Let me turn it over to Angie to give a brief overview of Cornell College.
Perfect. Thanks, Steve. So Cornell College is a small liberal arts institution located in Mount Vernon, Iowa. We're right outside of Cedar Rapids in Iowa City. We are 95% residential institution, founded in 1853. So we're actually the first Cornell. We have just over 1,000 students. 26% of our students are students of color. And we have just over a third of our total student population are student athletes, and we're really geographically diverse, even with being in a relatively small town in Iowa. But I think the one thing that makes Cornell really unique is our one course at a time curriculum. Our students take one class with one faculty member for 18 days, which we call a block, and then they have a couple days off and they start a brand new course with a brand new instructor and a new set of peers. So everything we do needs to be tailored to our unique academic modality.
Thanks, Angie.
Yeah.
Let me talk a little bit about Data Intelligent. So Data Intelligent is a data as a service company. So we're focused on managing data and developing analytic solutions. We've been a partner of Cornell since 2021. And over that time, and we'll talk more about this during this webinar, we helped them implement Snowflake as a unified data platform, where we brought in several data sources into that platform, which then accelerated their Tableau solution development, which they then pushed out across the institution. So for today's session, what we want to talk about, we have a few learning outcomes that we want folks to take away from this discussion. First, we want to talk about Cornell College creating a data governance structure to drive this efficiency and decision-making process around using data. We also want to talk about how Cornell used tools such as Snowflake and Tableau to develop those, both the unified data platform as well as those analytic solutions that then the users can use to become more effective in their job. So let me turn it back over to Angie, who can tell us more about why they reached out to Data Intelligent and why we started this journey to improve their data maturity.
Exactly. So our journey with Data Intelligent began because I randomly signed up for a webinar similar to this one that the team was offering, and I instantly knew that I needed them in my corner to help us really make strides to improve things at Cornell College. And so it took a little bit longer to convince other people on our team to get them on board, but it's been really transformational to have them on board. And so for us, our biggest problem that we wanted to solve is that we really put into our strategic plan that we drafted in spring 2021, the idea of doing things differently. And so there's an emphasis on data informed decisions. And so also wanting to make sure we have a need for efficiency and speed. And we were finding at Cornell that we had too much data. Like I said, with our unique academic calendar, we basically do a semester in 3.5 weeks. So we have 8 sets of grades per year. We also have data from external surveys, whether it's NESI, whether it's a student satisfaction inventory or retention management service plus that we do with Ruffalo Noel Levitz. Plus we have in-home surveys that are administered by Residence Life or different things like that. Also, in terms of student retention and persistence, we've had a really robust retention lead team on campus that has developed a lot of really important data. And so we have all this data, but we have very little staff in my office to really dig into the information that we have and the data that we have. There's me and 3/4 of a data report specialist to do everything related to institutional effectiveness, including accreditation, including assessment, IPEDS reporting, external surveys, all the things that you could possibly imagine. In addition, something that has been incredibly frustrating and a big challenge on campus is that we have varying versions of truth, depending on which office is, or which system is pulling the numbers or the information. I started this position in the fall of 2019. And if you would have told me then that the biggest struggle was counting, whether that's students or faculty or different things like that, I would have, thought you were messing with me, because counting should be simple, right? But unfortunately it's not. And that's kind of the blessing and the curse of having a small school, that when we do have varying versions of truth, whether it's counting students on census day or faculty or different things like that, we only have 1,000 students. So at some point it becomes more efficient and easier to just say, all right, everyone, pull up your Excel spreadsheet. We're going to go student by student. That's terribly painstakingly detailed, but we're able to do it to get to the bottom of our varying versions of truth. I think so for us, we really wanted to build our data governance and our structure and things like that, because it was incredibly decentralized. When we were pulling together this webinar, Steve was like, well, talk about historically, how was your data governance? I was like, we didn't have any, and we really didn't. I refer to it as the Wild West. We had very little accountability for various offices on campus, whether it was admission office, advancement, alumni engagement, financial aid. We weren't talking to each other. We weren't defining things in the same way. And IT had been talking and talking and talking forever about data governance and creating what they wanted, which was, a data warehouse. But he had been talking about it so long, the director of IT had, that wasn't even the most current commodity out there. He was talking a little more old school, we found out when we started working with Data Intelligent. And so we decided, after creating some committees and subcommittees revolving around IT governance and data governance, that we wanted to almost build the plane as we were flying it. Normally that makes me a little twitchy, but for us, it really worked in this situation, because we had all these system and content matter experts from across campus that were invested in their small little areas, but they didn't understand the importance of sitting down and coming up with a data dictionary. That wasn't a fun and exciting or even relevant in their mind task to work on. And so by demonstrating the need and the return on investment, by working through the details and with a project, we were really able to show the importance of data governance and the need for sort of the nuts and bolts to progress us along our data maturity journey. And now Steve has some wonderful opportunities and examples of how his team specifically really helped us move the needle.
Yeah, thank you, Angie. It's been a really a great partnership working with you guys. So what I like to do is just start with some definitions around data driven. Just so people understand what we're talking about as we talk about data maturity, right? So data driven to us, you hear that term used a lot, is where data is embedded into all the businesses and decision-making processes within an organization. And what that means is that data is always available to help you in your day-to-day work, make key decisions, that are part of your job, right? So it's not siloed within one area where you always have to turn to make a request, get the data. It's right there at your fingertips. Also, when we think of data driven, it's all systems people are working together and make the most effective use of the data. So what this means too is that everyone is not only data aware, but they understand how to use data, right? And they know they're all speaking the same language, right? So you don't just, again, like Angie was sort of getting to, have certain areas that really kind of own the data, understood the data, how things are defined, and other people not. Everyone does when you're really data driven. And at Data Intelligent, we've come up with this concept of data maturity roadmap here, or model, I should say here. You can see here things are along a continuum. When you look on the left-hand side at data aware, all the way up to data driven, which we talked about, right? And all organizations want to keep moving up this continuum to become data driven. Most of organizations we deal with are somewhere in between data proficient, data savvy. And what this means is that they do have some standardized reporting, and they have data that sometimes is more looking backwards, right, instead of looking forwards. They kind of understand how you did the past quarter rather than using it to kind of predict and what you want to do in the future. But it's not across the organization. It's sort of siloed in different areas there, right? So we use this as model as a framework to kind of when we engage with a new customer, we use this to try to understand, okay, where are you and where can we help you move along this continuum? Some of these challenges around becoming data driven, and again, Angie kind of got to these, is, you know, the first one is really access to data. There's in all organizations, there's many barriers to access. Some are just as simple as getting logins, but there's also there's governance around it. There's certain areas that do not want to share with different other areas, right? And I think that's another point down on this slide here: data governance and ownership, right? Which all are all kind of barriers to accessing the data. There's also complexity of integrating multiple data sources, right? Not, you know, I'm sure we all find something simple as a student ID, maybe represented in different ways across different systems. And also, I think where you see a lot of areas or a lot of institutions having struggle is time, resource, and funding to really build out that that data analytics platform, and as well as those analytics that you need to kind of drive your organization forward. Again, Angie did mention that as well. Most places that we deal with are similar to Angie, where they're a small shop, where they have multiple demands and not enough time to meet all those. The final point on here is data literacy. And what we mean by that too is, and this gets to that data maturity of the organization, is where the folks just aren't really data aware of, like, how to use data. They don't understand how it's defined. So sometimes they don't use it within their day-to-day operation. So one of the challenges is improving that data literacy across the organization. So we've come up with not only that data maturity model, we also came up with some key principles that could help you move along that continuum. Okay, and we borrowed some ideas from a joint statement that came out from EDUCAUSE, et cetera. You can see the citation at the bottom there. And we teased out 3 main principles. The first is make your data analytics transformational. The second is invest what you can. And the third is establish a unified approach. And let me walk through each of these briefly. When we say make data analytics transformational, what we mean is you need to connect your data analytics to the institutional mission and strategic plan. Okay, so you want to be looked at where can you can provide the most value for whatever analytics you're doing there, and you do have to tie it to whatever either strategic plan, your mission, etc., because that also helps with getting buy-in from the rest of the institution. We also recommend develop a roadmap, right? You know, it doesn't have to be too fancy, but start thinking about, because this is a journey. It's not going to happen overnight. Develop a roadmap where you look at where are we at now, where do we want to get to, what are the steps we need to take to get to our eventual goal of being data driven. Second principle that we recommend is invest what you can. Like I said, this is a journey. This is not something going to happen overnight. I think a lot of times organizations get kind of stuck because it looks daunting. Like, oh my gosh, we got to build this big data warehouse. We got to do all this stuff just to start down this path. And what we recommend is don't do it that way. Instead, is take an iterative approach and look for those small wins that provide the most value you can. We always say start with some easy data. Do you have some data that is either in a spreadsheet, et cetera, that maybe you're using on a monthly basis to develop something that you push out manually? Maybe we start with some easy stuff that is high value. And then what happens is people get like, oh, this is great, I want more of this, right? And that starts you down this journey of becoming to becoming data driven there. And the third approach or principle that we like to recommend is establish a unified approach. And this is key, and we'll talk about this in a second here, more detail. But you really have to remove those silos of data, right? Most colleges and universities have a few systems that are key to their operations, and a lot of times they're siloed and not all together, right? So we recommend establish a unified approach, bring those data into one unified platform. That will allow you then to have one source of truth. Remember, Angie mentioned that that was one thing that was kind of maddening to her, is that, you know, there was multiple sources of truth. But this will allow you to have one source of truth. It also will help speed up your analytics development, because now you can go to one source, you can develop things from multiple source systems. So let's talk a little bit about this unified data platform. And this is something that we helped Angie and Cornell establish here. And this is sort of our typical setup here, where you have on your left-hand side your source systems, and they can be internal, external. You then have your data pipelines that are pulling data into a data lake. And we recommend, we use Snowflake as a cloud database. We find that's very cost effective, but it could be, you could use anything for it. You could use something like Azure, etc. So we bring it into Snowflake. We create data lakes, right? And what this really means is we're just copying over the tables, right? We're not doing any transformation of that data. We bring it into Snowflake, and then from there we create those data sets that are necessary to drive your analytics. So on the right-hand side, you see tools like Tableau to develop those visualizations that you're looking for. So as I mentioned, Snowflake is a partner of ours, and one that we've had great luck with as a cloud data platform. And one of the advantages of Snowflake or tools like them is it's on demand. So as far as when for compute and storage, and what that means is you don't get charged unless you're using it, right? So it's very cost effective. And it's easy to stand up. You can stand it up within a day and start importing data and building your tables out there. So this is really an advantage of, or something where you can take advantage of the cloud technology that's out there. Talked about data lakes, right? Extract and load source tables. Transformations are done at the data sets, right? So what this allows, though, is a lot of flexibility. So now that I have everything in the data lake, when I have a new solution, I need a new data set, then I just create those views off the data lake. It's a lot more efficient way of doing it, as opposed to the old model, which was your old data warehouse. We had to do a lot of data modeling, etc., which slowed the process down. Now with cloud technology, cheap storage, cheap processing, it makes a lot of sense to take advantage of something like Snowflake. And as I mentioned, we use data management tools to develop those data pipelines. Sometimes we build APIs, or you query directly to the database to bring it in, and you set something up where it automate those updates, so the data lake always has the most current data. So a structure like this is really something that we found really does benefit organizations like Cornell as far as accelerating their data maturity. Okay, just to summarize there, the benefits of this unified data platform. Data is now easily available in one platform. Data lake allows for easy combining and refreshing of the data sources into those views and data sets you need to drive analytics. The cloud architecture can be established in weeks rather than months, and I would say even days. It's that easy, and it's cost effective. So a lot of times people in the past, when you did a big data warehouse, you had on-premise hardware. You know, you're talking 6 figures as far as an investment. Something like this could be relatively cheap and could be a couple $100 a month just to start with your Snowflake infrastructure. So let me jump in here and show you a few of the solutions that we did develop for Cornell And Angie, please jump in here and from your perspective, kind of give what you're seeing from a Cornell side as far as value of this. But first one we did is student success and retention here. And what this shows is interactive dashboard showing students at risk. So we come up with a certain criteria that drive whether a student is going to be successful or maybe is at risk for not coming back, right? And so you want to be proactive about this. And this dashboard here allows a very easy one-stop shop to see how your students are doing. And we apply a risk score, and from there you can kind of triage, right? You can go after the students high at risk and email them directly from here. The advisor can reach out, etc. And if you want to see more detail on that student, you can drill in, right? So you can see, here's an example here of a student here. You can see, how they're doing across the board as far as grades. Are they having any financial holds, etc. And these are the data that the advisors or the Student Success Center really need to understand how a student's doing so they can develop any type of interventions. As you can see here, we took advantage of the data lake, unified data platform, because we pulled in data sources from 3 different areas: Power Campus, Power Fades, and student surveys, right, to develop this dashboard here. And it was once we got them in the data lake, it was pretty easy to do. Angie, I know I'm talking a lot here, but I want to give you a chance to kind of speak to this as well.
Yeah, I think one of the things I like the most about this solution is that you've got the aggregate data and sort of a big snapshot that you can really drill into. What we've established in our strategic plan is what we call demographics of interest. So we are slicing and dicing and looking at different subpopulations, whether that's student athletes, whether that's domestic students of color, first generation students, Pell eligible students, gender, different demographics. And so we're able to do that at the aggregate level and give different people on campus different access or different levels of access to the aggregate data. So academic advisors can see only their advisees. But then, right, this snapshot of the student detail really is a great way for our Student Success Center staff or even academic advisors to see literally everything we have on the student in one spot, so they're not having to look up their scores on this or their GPA or their ACT scores or different things like that. It's literally all in one system and really quick for their glance and for preparations with meeting with the students or different things like that.
Great. Let me show you another example here, and maybe Angie, I'll have you speak to the purpose of this one. Because I think this was a business question you guys had, and we were able to pull data together from Slate and Power Campus to give you a insight into how students, their pathways as far as declaration of a major to their final major. So I'll let you kind of speak to the business case behind this one.
Yeah, exactly. So this was actually one of the first dashboards that we did with Data Intelligent. And we picked it because on some levels, it was a little bit of low hanging fruit, that it was really easy data from different systems that we could connect. And what this is doing is this is looking at a student's journey from their application to their initial major declaration, which at Cornell they do during their 3rd semester on campus, and then graduation. And anytime that they change their major, because there's rhetoric and conversations about how often students change majors. And so what we wanted to do is we wanted to see which of our majors have a lot of students who, either receive a lot of new students after they, they maybe aren't initially interested in them on their application, but they sort of woo them during their time at Cornell. Or sort of the opposite. I went to Purdue and we joked a little bit that everyone started off as an engineering major, myself included, but not everyone graduated as an engineer. And so those would be, the contributors or different things like that. And so we wanted to really see what the path was for our students, because we wanted to be sure that our degree options were aligning. So if we saw that a lot of students from computer science were switching to sociology, we wanted to be sure that it was a smooth transition, because selfishly, the college doesn't care what the students get the degree in. What we care about is that they have a great experience and that they're able to complete their degree smoothly at Cornell, and that they don't leave the institution because there's too many hurdles once they change their mind on their major. And we actually, weirdly enough, when we combined the information from students' applications to their first declaration and then their graduation, between our two systems of Slate and Power Campus, from admission and from institutional effectiveness, we saw that as a whole, our students didn't have a lot of movement, which I think, me and Steve's team, we triple checked things, because there wasn't a ton of movement. And that sort of surprised us, that a lot of the Cornell students who said they wanted to major in XYZ on their application, that's what they ended up graduating in. And so for us, that's also told a really interesting story too. Not necessarily the one we expected, but interesting nonetheless. But we're able to see on this dashboard the students who did migrate out, for example, of our psychology. We're able to see what they migrated to or what they migrated from. And again, we're able to break it down by gender, ethnicity, first generation status, if a student's a transfer student or not. And again, we're able to look at different departments, different matriculation years, first or additional majors, all of those different categories. And so this has been really interesting for the provost to use, but then also we're working on getting it into department chairs' hands, so they're able to see the movement and the path that our students take in their journey.
Yeah, so I think it's a great example. Like, when you visualize data, it tells a better story than looking something at a spreadsheet here. So I think this is a great example of that. One final one that I just want to highlight here was something around academic success and tracking when students drop or withdraw from a course. And we were able to come up with a dashboard here that showed this at you can see here, a summary level. It dropped by course, instructor, block, graduation status. So it gave insights into that then people could follow up with and understand, like, why are we seeing, drops, etc., in certain areas. And I thought it's very insightful, I think, to or again, power of visualization, where you can see this here. And this was something, and I'll let Angie speak to the business case around this, that we're able to do very, very quickly, because we already had everything in the data lake here. So this is something we got start to finish done in probably 30 days at max here. So again, just shows by having that unified data platform, you really can accelerate your data analytics.
Exactly. This dashboard brought together a couple different static reports that we had on campus, and instantly when we pulled it together, we had insight that we were able to see insight that we hadn't seen in the years that we had been looking at withdrawal data for what institutions often call gateway courses, or the courses that have high DFW rates and stuff like that. We had always talked about statistics, we had always talked about some of our entry level chem and STEM courses, but as soon as we did this, all of a sudden microeconomics popped up, and we're like, holy cow, we had never even had that on our radar. But because of this visualization, we were able to see that and really identify it. And it's been interesting to have that quick, speedy tool. Like Steve said, we got this finished so quickly, and it's already provided a lot of really great insight for us.
Great. So Angie, I'll let you speak to the realized value then of this partnership and this kind of the help we provide you guys down this journey here.
Yeah, I mean, any progress we've made on our data maturity or data governance or anything along the data usage really wouldn't have been possible without Steve's team and having sort of their insight. I really appreciate their knowledge from a technical side, but then also like the knowledge they have from the higher ed side. I love our IT department. We are, really lucky at Cornell to have a really wonderful IT department, but they're also really overtaxed, and everyone wants them to build something for them. And oftentimes they have a great background in IT, but they don't always have a background in higher ed. So we spend a lot of time talking about, no, this is what real academic year is, or this is what a course withdrawal is, or this is how a cumulative GPA works versus term, or different things like that. And we've been able to really hit the ground running with Data Intelligent because they all come from a higher ed background. And so that's been incredibly helpful for us. Also, we've been able to really tailor some of our programming and our intervention efforts based on the information that we've gleaned out of the major movement and different things along those lines, whether it's the student success and the student retention dashboard that we looked at. We also really have gotten able to have the conversations about some of the more boring, quote unquote, components of data governance, whether it's a data dictionary or different things like that, because of the visibility of these and a couple Other Tableau dashboards that we have on campus. We're really able to propel the conversations forward on a need for consistency in data, in definitions, different things along those lines. One example is we pulled phone numbers and we were able to see how much variation there was from Slate, which is what our admission office uses, Power Campus, which is what our student records use once the students are enrolled, and then our alumni office. And we were able to run a report really quickly to say, look, these are the hundreds of phone numbers that aren't in the right format. And so now we have to go in and individually fix all of these. And so that really provided a real world example to our content experts to put the importance on creating a really consistent system and things like that. And having the data dictionary to say, this is the formatting of different, whether it's addresses or phone numbers or different things like that. And so I think that really helped provide real world examples. And so, like I said, one of our future plans, or what we're in the midst of, is looking at the data dictionary and being really clear on what we're talking about when it comes to data, whether that's retention, persistence, or percentage of student athletes, different definitions for everything. Again, just to make sure that we're being really transparent and really clear on what we're talking about. And then we're also really working to connect and continue connecting our data across the different systems that we have on campus to really create a more holistic picture. And so everything we're doing is really getting at a 360 view of all the data that we have in our systems to get it all in one location. We're also working on continuing to increase buy-in across campus. We found that we have a varying ability and commitment across our content matter experts. Some people are all for trying new things and learning new things. Other people sort of freak out when we say, hey, we're going to do something new. And so we're working to get that more consistent across campus and increasing the knowledge and the comfortability with Tableau or with different, data sources. And I think something that we've really learned is, don't bypass something that's good while you're waiting for perfect. That I think good is good enough sometimes, and that's a great place to start, and then you can turn it into perfect. And when you have good, then other people can see the greatness that you're working on, and that sort of breeds more excitement for the projects and for the data governance and the processes that you're getting at.
Great. Thanks, Angie. This is I just want to thank you for the partnership over the last couple of years. We really enjoy working with you, and we're glad that we were able to at least help you down this journey here to become more data driven here. And just, so thank you for everyone for listening to us talk here, and hopefully you found something of value within our discussion about how we partner together to kind of improve the data maturity for Cornell. You can see here our contact information if you have any additional questions, you just want to reach out to us. And thank you again for listening to us.